Greetings, Andy here again. This is my entry for the summer vinyl tag. So I watched this on Noble Records, Dillon and Noble Records a few days ago, suggesting that we all gave a go at doing a summer vinyl tag. So this is his choice of 20 questions. Question number 1 was an album or song with summer in the name, and the only one I could think of that I got is the album Under Summer by Indie Howder. Indie Howder are a post-rock band from England, Canterbury in Kent, and they're not very prolific. This is their second album, which came out, when was it, in 2016 originally, and it was, you know, probably 10 or so years after their debut. This is a cracker. It's only got 4 tracks on it, so 1 on each side basically. They're long tracks, and you know, it's really good post-rock from a relatively little known band. There you go, that's that, and as I say, it's a double with one track on each side. Number 2, latest heavy pull. When I watched Dillon, I didn't really understand that at first, but I think what he meant by it was, what's the last record that you got which was a real grail, or something which was really important to you and you've been waiting for ages. So I think, you know, for me, the one I can pick most, I actually got last year in 2023, and it is Hymn to the Immortal Wind by Mono. So another post-rock band, and one of my favourites. Mono are from Japan. This to me is their best album. I found it a digital copy for many years, but never seen it on vinyl. And then I came across this. It was on their American record label site, so I ended up importing it effectively. So the postage was a bit high, but you know, otherwise it wasn't bad. And it was an album I'd been after for a very long time. It's got some classic tracks on there. Ashes in the Snow is absolutely wonderful. I've talked about it before. Burial at Sea, Pure as Snow, The Battle to Heaven and Everlasting Light. They're really classic. They are touring later this year to mark their 25th anniversary, and they're playing a tiny venue in London. I've got a ticket to see that, so I could be intrigued. It's a converted church apparently. So that's Mono, Hymn to the Immortal Wind, and it's very resplendent in orange on a double. Number 3, Whack-A-Mole album. So this is named after Mazzy's series of randomly pulling a record out without knowing what it is, and then talking about it without prep. So I don't have any records behind me, so I've done this about 10 minutes ago, and here's what I pulled out. So here we go. I'm going to take one from here somewhere, and I don't know what's up here. What have we got? Oh, and it is the album Morgan. That's an interesting one. So you can see it is Morgan and the self-titled album Morgan, which, just in case you couldn't read it on there, it's rather large on there. Morgan are a 1960s New York, I think, psych rock band. So in the sort of field like 13th Floor Elevators, that sort of classics 60s psych. Absolutely brilliant. And this was a reissue which came out in 2022. And it's a style of music I really like. I hadn't heard of it before. I think from memory it was I saw Steve Carlson talk about this and went searching for it and got this reissue, and rather good it is too. Single album, and as I say, it's classic 60s psych. So next one, number 4, an album cover with an animal on it. So It was a bit slightly random. I wasn't going for this one originally, but then I pulled it out looking for something else and thought, oh, that was a better one. So it's Doolittle by Pixies, a classic album from when did it come out? 1989, so just in the 80s. This is a later reissue, single album, and obviously one of the key tracks on there, because bizarrely the tracks are all sort of listed on the outside, side A on the front and side B on the back, is Monkey Goes to Heaven, a classic track, and obviously there is the monkey with a halo. So that's Doolittle, Pixies, single album. So number 5, an album with a great story, and I'm going with this one with Radiohead and Kid A, which came out in 2000. At the time I bought it on CD. This is the reissue from, I don't know, a couple of years ago, I think, 2 or 3 years ago, which combined Kid A and Amnesia, the sort of subsequent album and almost sort of accompanying album, often known as Kid B. Great album. I'm not going to talk about it. Everyone knows about Kid A. So the story is when they released this in late, I think October, around then anyway, 2000, they obviously went on tour, and the tour was taking a circus big tent and performing in that. And they played in one of the, well, I don't know whether it's 2 or 3 nights, but in Warrington in Cheshire. And at the time I was living in Macclesfield, the other side of Cheshire. And I took my daughter, who was 14, to see it, because it was, it seemed like an opportunity to take her to see a proper band for her first gig, so we went to see Radiohead. Absolutely amazing gig. I read much later that the members of Doves went to see them, went to that gig, and were absolutely influenced by it. It absolutely bowled them over, and it was sort of one of those you had to be there type gigs. So that's Kid A, Radiohead. This particular release is a triple. It's got the original Kid A on one, the original Kid B, Amnesia on the other, and then there's some sort of bonus tracks from the recordings of both of those. So the next one, an album you would be surprised to see in your collection, or in my collection, and I'm going with Scritti Politti and Provision. Now, I've often said, sometime in the mid-late 80s, I think this came out, I've often said, well, the 80s sort of passed me by. They're obviously the first couple of years where it was really carry on from the 70s, but once synth pop got going properly, I sort of dipped out and didn't really get back into new music until we were into the 90s. Why on earth have I got Scritti Politti? Well, this was my wife Marion's. It's sort of one I've inherited from her, you could say. And I confess, it's got all the tracks there. I've never listened to it. I come across it every now and then and keep thinking, I really ought to listen to that. You never know, I might like it now. So I'm going to now I've got it out again. I'm going to keep it out and determine to. I probably need to give it a bit of a clean, but I shall be playing this and see whether I like it. So next, this is one I couldn't do accurately. It was Cheap Heat. What Dillon was saying, this was a record which, is quite cheap, but really ought to be a lot more. Now, I don't buy records on value, so I don't know what the value generally is of mine. So I'm going to cheat slightly here, and I'm going. The Heat is Fire Records, and I'm going with Bark Psychosis and Hex, and this is the reissue, which came out, where was it, in 2017. The original was in 1994 on Fire Records. This is an absolute classic of post-rock, so yet another post-rock connection here. And as I've said in the past, this album was the album which the term post-rock was originally coined for in a review of it in a magazine. And you know, cheap. Well, not terribly. I can't remember. I think it was about 35 quid. So you say, well, that's not cheap. But you know, if you look at Discogs, and I just happened to have a look in preparing for this at what some of my Discogs prices are. This is now apparently the high is £194, and the medium price is 70. And the next one is a 45. Oh, it is. Elvis Presley at 706 Union Avenue, which is the Sun Studios, and it's the Sun Singles 1954 to 55, and this was a Third Man Records Vault issue earlier this year, or the end of last year, I can't remember, and there are 6 basically singles in here with a hole in the middle, but thankfully they did include a thing to put it in, because I don't have one. So that's my 45 entry. And next one is favourite music documentary or biopic, and I and ah about this. I quite like the Queen one, the Freddie Mercury biopic, but I'm going for the mockumentary, the music documentary of all times, and that of course is This Is Spinal Tap. Now I do have a DVD of it somewhere, but I couldn't put my fingers on it. So yeah, I know it's not serious, but I think it's brilliant. So next one, a box set. Well, I could have done several of these, but I'm staying on the post-rock theme, and I'm going with Mogwai and their box set Central Belters. So this came out in 2017 and was sort of like marked their 20th anniversary. And basically it's a sort of best of compilation of their stuff to that date. And the box set, it's got 6 records in it. So, you know, a very thorough one. There's a list of all the tracks, which, you know, up to that, I think they produced, from memory, 2 LPs since this, released 2 LPs since this. So it does cover the majority of their albums, and got a nice booklet in it. One thing one disappointing thing here, for a band which produced some, you know, a lot of their releases have got some really good artwork on there. This is pretty crap. It's really boring and dull, and each of the records are the same. It's just like disc 1, you know, and they're all like that. So anyway, it's great music. It was bloody good value as well. This is one I could have put in, because my wife Marion bought this for me you know, when it came out as a Christmas present. And it was £50 at the time for 6 LPs. That's pretty good. So next we have most trash record in your collection. Sigur Rós, Valtteri is what I'm going for. Now I could have gone for you know, some of my old early 70s stuff, which were, you know, played to death on crap equipment, and I didn't look after stuff then. But this one I'm picking because it's more of a modern problem, and this is a reissue which original came out in 2012. This was a reissue in 2021. I did have it originally on CD. And the problem with this is that when it arrived, I bought it online. When it arrived, there were a few little globules almost of vinyl, spare vinyl, in the packaging. And on side A, you probably can't see this very well. I'm going to put my fingers all over here because it sort of doesn't matter, but just round there, I don't know whether you can see, but there's a load of striations about the size of a thumb, and it's not just one. There's about 5 or 6 fairly deep striations, and you know, when that played, it was really, really bad. So Anyway, the store I bought it from, can't remember which one. I'd send them photos of it and of the little globulars, but they sent a replacement, which was fine. So what next? A local album. Now I'm going back to my childhood, and I've mentioned this before. So I grew up. I moved there when I was 9, but I grew up in a place called Moseley in Birmingham, in a sort of, when I was a kid there, it was a fairly leafy suburb in a leafy suburban street, and down the other end of the street from where I live. So I'm going back now, sort of 68, 69, around that time, was a guy called Bev Bevan, who lived at the other end of the road from where I lived. It wasn't a long road, so it was just sort of round the corner. And he of course was then he was the drummer of the Move, and subsequently the drummer of ELO. So you can't get much more local than that. So I'm picking, but by then he'd moved, and I think we were just about moving somewhere else. This came out in '77, I think, and it's Electric Light Orchestra and Out of the Blue, classic, absolute classic. Mr. Blue Sky and Birmingham Blues, but this one is very resplendent in blue vinyl. So from a local album to an album from a far away land. I didn't give this a lot of thought because this is a current one, and the album I'm thinking of is The Dirty Three and Love Changes Everything. And Dirty Three come from Melbourne in Australia, so the other side of the world. Now, this came out either at the very end of June or the very beginning of July. I picked it up towards the beginning of July, and it's a cracking album, Dirty Three. I don't really know them. I'd sort of heard of them, but I was quite intrigued by this because, one of the members of it is Warren Ellis of obviously Bad Seeds and Nick Cave fame, who I really like. The other members are Mick Turner. He plays obviously violin, piano, and also bass. Mick Turner, who plays guitar and lead guitar and bass, and Jim White drums. I think generally one of them is still in Melbourne, and one's in New York now, and Warren Ellis lives in Paris. So they're all over the place. But this was recorded in there, and it's their umpteenth album. They've been actually going since before before the Bad Seeds, so been around a long time. It is. I mean, I saw it described as post-rock, and having listened to it probably 3 times now, I sort of get. It's not obviously so, but I get that it is a bit post-rocky in some regards. It's purely instrumental, and rather good it is too. I like it. It's got 6 tracks on it, effectively 3 on each side, and each one of them is Love's Changes Everything 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So as I say, I'll talk about this a little bit more when I do my roundup. The next one, a soundtrack, Blade Runner, Vangelis, and this. I mean, the album came out 10 years or so after the film, and I just loved it. I mean, it didn't matter. It was a film. In a way, it stands alone as an album in its own right, but it also happens to be one of my favourite movies of all time. Absolutely love it. Your highest recommendation? I thought quite a lot about this because I do sort of recommend albums quite a lot, and I think over the last sort of 2 or 3 years, the one I would pull out and give my biggest recommendation to is Black Country New Road and Ants from Up There. There it is. Now, Black Country New Road, the Black Country is the West Midlands, but these come from Cambridge, so I don't know what the reference is. This is their second album, which was released in 2022, and it was one of my absolute top albums of that year. And as you can see, this particular version's signed by the band. They're another one who are described as post-rock, but I don't think they are. I think if anything, they're a little bit proggy, but they don't really sort of sit any one genre. Experimental sometimes is probably a fair one. Art rock sometimes they're called, and they're not that, in my opinion. They're a 6-piece, though when they did this, they were a 7-piece, and IW is Isaac Wood, who was the singer, and he's got a really distinctive voice. And he basically left the band literally the day before this was released, citing his mental health. He just couldn't take it. And you know, the singing on here, it does have a real emotional. You can feel that it's probably really taking it out of him. So they've had to completely change. They are still going despite losing, the singer. And I believe that the band member who is taking over the lead singer is bassist Tyler Hyde. Now, Tyler Hyde is the daughter of Carl Hyde of Underworld fame. So she's got a lovely voice. They did they released a few months or about a year ago a live record they did, since Isaac Wood left, with her doing most of, but not all of the vocals, and with new material they'd been writing. And I believe they're currently working on on their next record after this, but it will be completely different, obviously, because the vocal style is so different. But they're really great songs, definitely worth checking out. And this will be, I wouldn't say a one-off because they had an album before this, but this is a step on from it. So there you go. That's my recommendation. Ants from Up Here, which is also in a very nice blue and black marble affair. Now, highest on your want list. Now, again, I have sort of like a list of albums bands, records from bands I'd quite like to listen to. Generally, I don't have one I could pull out, but right at this moment in time, I do. And that is the latest release by Jack White called No Name. And as I'm recording this on Saturday the 3rd, is it, of August, and then announced halfway through last week that he was releasing the actual album. It's on blue vinyl, and it's completely unavailable. I've looked at, literally none of the shops. They've all got it listed, and it's all out of stock. And I don't know whether that's because they've sold them all in one day, or whether it's like they haven't had the stock to start with, because it all happened very quickly. It's a bit bizarre. I don't know what's going on, but I've streamed some of the tracks, and it's brilliant. It really is. It's back to his garage rock best, a real sort of like White Stripes feel for it. So that's my highest on the list. Number 17, a channel shout out, and I'm picking up the local theme here because obviously with vinyl channels around there, they're worldwide. There's lots of all over, and I do watch quite a few, mostly in the States, to be honest. But I'm giving a shout out to Richard Warwick, whose channel is called at Vinyl Heaven-And-Hell2023. So I'll put it on here. And Richard is one of the few channel makers, YouTubers that I've actually met. He's in my local area, so Hampshire, Berkshire area, and he trades in record fairs as they come around, which is where I met him at one in Winchester. His channel is, he talks about auctions. That he's picked up records from, and goes through some of the things he's had and bargains. I think the last one he did I saw was about his. He looked at the value on Discogs, which prompted me to have a look. Mine, because I haven't got that sort of record collection. Mine doesn't look particularly exciting, he's also got a prestigious collection of New Musical Express, NME, old back numbers going back, decades. And every now and then he does a review of, not so much a review, but what the contents were on that particular one. So give Richard a look out. So number 18, so we're coming towards the end now. It was a silver lining in vinyl. So again, slightly tongue-in-cheek. I'm going to take this slightly literally. Because vinyl, a silver lining comes from the phrase, every cloud has a silver lining. So every cloud, in this case, I'm going with Obscured by Clouds by Pink Floyd, which also a soundtrack. And this is my original version, which I bought in 1972 when I was, 15 or so. And whilst I sort of liked it, it's been played a lot. It's in a dreadful condition. I remember taking it into school and stuff like that. There's just something about it which never quite grabbed me. And I read then a few years ago that there was a problem with this. So this is the original first pressing with A1, B1 on the run-out etching. And apparently that they withdrew that very quickly and reissued one, A2, B2. And the problem with this was that the sort of the mix or the cut or the master was faulty, shall we say. Apparently there was a problem with the EQ and it just wasn't right. And that sort of explains in a way why it just didn't quite fit for me. So after I read that, I kept an eye open and I bought this. This is a much more recent reissue, and it is noticeably different. It's much. It just sounds a lot better than the original. So that's an unusual one where where the first press is not one you want. Number 19, penultimate question. A steal of a deal. So this is another one I sort of struggle with. Occasionally go to a record fair, but I don't really do that much digging around in the sort of sub £5 crates. So I had a look on Discogs and was absolutely amazed to see this one was a good deal. So it is Daft Punk live album, and it's Daft Punk Alive 2007. Well, why would that be so expensive? I don't know. Now, I bought this for £18. It was in a online sale from a store in relatively local in Southampton. Didn't think anything more of it, but when I was sort of like trying to have a quick look at what the value of my stuff on Discogs is, this is probably the biggest delta. So as I say, I bought it for 18, and the high price on Discogs is 117, and the mid price is 60. So it might just be because one person has bought it at a stupid price, but anyway, that's my entry for that. I do like a live record, and I like Daft Punk, so it's a double. And finally, number 20 is a promo. Now, I don't collect promos specifically. I don't have white labels or promos or anything like that, but I do have one which I discovered subsequently was a promo. And again, this is one which could have been in my soundtrack ones, and it's Superfly by Curtis Mayfield, and this is the MoFi, the Mobile Fidelity one, issued on 45 RPM, so real high resolution. And the reason, if you look at it, it was supposed to be a limited edition of 4,000 numbered, and there's no number there. And the barcode has been etched out because this was issued as a promo, so it's sort of, one more than the 4,000. So and cracking record it is too, and as I say, because it's a 45 RPM, it's a double. So there you go. That's my summer vinyl tag, and I've done it in my summary room, and I've got my summary shirt on. So there you go. Hope you enjoyed that. Thanks for watching. Cheers.